I still remember the day I drove my first car home. A black Ford Mustang GT 2018 model. I saved every penny for 4 years, working part-time jobs through college to buy that car. It was my pride, my proof that I could build something on my own. I thought my family would be happy for me. I was wrong. My younger brother looked at that car with hungry eyes. And my parents. They saw it as something their golden child deserved more than me. I never imagined that car would almost send me to prison while the real thief sat at our family dinner table. Before we dive into this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If you have ever felt like the overlooked one in your family, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Trust me, you will want to stay until the end of this one because what my parents did next will shock you. My name is Ashford and I grew up in a small suburban town in Ohio. Our house sat on a quiet street with neatly trimmed lawns and neighbors who waved politely but never got too close. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family. 2 parents, 2 sons, a golden retriever named Biscuit. But behind closed doors, the reality was far from perfect. My father, Raymond, was 58 years old and worked as a mid-level manager at an insurance company. He was the kind of man who believed in hierarchy, in order, in knowing your place. And in his mind, my place was always second. My mother, Patricia, was 55, a homemaker who dedicated her life to running the household. She had a warm smile for everyone, especially for my younger brother. Her eyes would light up whenever he walked into the room in a way they never did for me. Then there was Derek. My brother was 24, 4 years younger than me. He had our mother's charming smile and our father's confident stance. Everyone called him the golden child, and he knew it. Derek was handsome, charismatic, the kind of person who could talk his way out of any situation. But beneath that polished exterior was a young man who had never worked a real job, never faced consequences, and never heard the word no from our parents. I was the opposite. I learned early that nothing would be handed to me. When I was 16, I asked my parents for help buying a used car so I could get to my part-time job at the grocery store. My father looked at me like I had asked for a mansion. He said they did not have the money for such luxuries. That same year, Derek turned 12 and threw a tantrum because he wanted the newest iPhone. 3 days later, it was in his hands. I walked 2 miles to work in the rain while my little brother played games on his $1,000 phone. The pattern continued through the years. When I got accepted to college with a 50% scholarship, my parents did not attend my high school graduation. Derek had a soccer game that day and they could not possibly miss watching him sit on the bench for 2 hours. When I graduated from college with honors in computer engineering, they sent a text message. "Congratulations," it said. No exclamation point, no pride, just a single cold word. Derek failed his college entrance exams twice. My mother said he just needed more time to find himself. My father said some people were not meant for traditional education. They paid for him to take gap years, funded his trips to find himself in Europe, bought him clothes and gadgets and everything his heart desired. Meanwhile, I worked double shifts to pay off my student loans. I moved out when I was 22, right after graduation. I found a job as a software engineer at a tech company in Columbus, about 2 hours from my hometown. I rented a small apartment, bought second-hand furniture, and started building a life on my own terms. For the first time, I felt free. I visited home occasionally, mostly out of obligation, but each visit reminded me why I left. 4 years into my career, I finally had enough savings for something I had dreamed about since I was a teenager. A car that was truly mine, bought with money I earned through my own sweat and sacrifice. I walked into the dealership on a Saturday morning and drove out in a black Ford Mustang GT. $32,000 financed over 3 years. It was not the most practical choice, but it was my choice. The leather seats, the roar of the engine, the way it hugged the curves on the highway. That car represented everything I had worked for. I made the mistake of driving it home to show my family. I thought maybe, just maybe, they would finally see me as someone who had made it. Someone worthy of their pride. My father was washing his sedan in the driveway when I pulled up. He looked at the Mustang, then at me, and shook his head. "Why would you waste money on something so impractical?" he said. "You should have bought a sensible car and invested the rest." No congratulations, no admiration, just criticism. My mother came outside, wiping her hands on her apron. "Oh my," she said, but her eyes were not on me. They were calculating, scheming. "You know, your brother has been wanting to learn to drive a nicer car. Maybe you could let him borrow it sometime. Derek would be so happy." And then Derek appeared. He walked around the Mustang, slowly running his fingers along the hood, peering through the windows. He did not say anything at first, just absorbed every detail with those hungry eyes I mentioned earlier. Then he smiled, that charming smile of his. "Come on, bro," he said. "Let me take it for a spin. Just around the block." I said no. For the first time in my life I said no to something my family wanted from me, and I meant it. That car was mine, and I was not going to hand it over just because Derek batted his eyelashes. The atmosphere changed immediately. My mother called me selfish. My father said I had always been the difficult one. Derek just shrugged and walked back inside, but I saw the look in his eyes. It was not disappointment. It was calculation. I drove back to Columbus that evening with a knot in my stomach. I told myself I was being paranoid, that my family might be frustrating, but they would never actually cross a line. I was wrong about that, too. 2 weeks after I showed my family the Mustang, I made the mistake of visiting home again. It was my mother's birthday, and, despite everything, I still felt obligated to be there. I parked the car in my parents' garage overnight, thinking it would be safe. When I woke up the next morning, the car was gone. I ran outside in my pajamas, my heart pounding. The garage was empty. I checked the driveway, the street, even walked around the block. Nothing. I called my father, who was already at work, and he said he had no idea what I was talking about. I called my mother, who was in the kitchen making breakfast, like nothing had happened. She suggested maybe I had forgotten where I parked. Then I called Derek. He did not answer. I found him 3 hours later, when he finally pulled the Mustang back into the driveway. There was a fresh scratch running along the front bumper, a deep gash in the black paint that made my stomach turn. Derek stepped out of the car with a casual shrug. "Relax," he said. "I just took it for a quick drive. It is not a big deal." "Not a big deal," I pointed at the scratch. "What happened to my car?" He rolled his eyes. "Some idiot in a parking lot opened their door too hard. It is barely noticeable." I demanded to know how he got the keys. He laughed and said he found the spare set in my jacket pocket while I was sleeping. He said it like it was a joke, like stealing my car and damaging it was just a funny story to tell at parties. I looked to my parents for support, for outrage, for anything. My mother said I was overreacting. My father said I should be grateful Derek brought it back in one piece. When I insisted that Derek pay for the repairs, my father actually laughed. He said Derek did not have a job, so how could he possibly pay? The implication was clear. I should just absorb the cost and move on. I left that day without saying goodbye. I drove back to Columbus, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I was angry, but more than that, I was tired. Tired of being the one who always had to be understanding, always had to be the bigger person. I changed the locks on my apartment door that week. I hid the spare car key in a lockbox that only I knew the combination to. I thought I was being careful. I thought I was protecting myself. 1 month later, Derek showed up at my apartment unannounced. He said he was in Columbus visiting a friend and wanted to hang out. I should have turned him away, but some part of me still wanted to believe in the possibility of a normal brotherly relationship. I let him in, ordered pizza, and we watched a basketball game together. It was almost pleasant. The next morning I checked my security camera footage out of habit. There was Derek at 2 a.m. sneaking out of my apartment with my car keys in his hand. He had searched through my things while I slept, found the lockbox, and somehow guessed the combination. My birthday. I had used my birthday as the code. I confronted him over the phone. He laughed again, that infuriating laugh that said nothing I did or said would ever have consequences for him. He told me I needed to lighten up, that brothers share things, that I was being paranoid and possessive. After that, I changed the lockbox combination to a random string of numbers. I installed additional security cameras. I started parking in a different spot each night. I was living in my own apartment like a prisoner, constantly looking over my shoulder, constantly waiting for the next violation. The final blow came on a weekend when I had to travel to Chicago for a work conference. It was a 3-day trip, Thursday through Saturday. I took extra precautions before leaving. I parked the Mustang in a secure garage attached to my apartment building, a garage with key-card access and surveillance cameras. I double-checked the locks, enabled the car alarm, and even considered buying a steering wheel lock before deciding I was being ridiculous. I was not being ridiculous. I was being naive. When I returned on Saturday evening, my parking spot was empty. The Mustang was gone. I felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. I ran to the security office, demanded to see the footage, and watched in horror as a figure in a dark hoodie approached my car at 3 in the morning on Friday. The person moved with confidence, like they knew exactly what they were doing. They bypassed the alarm, somehow got into the car, and drove away. The camera angle was not great, but something about the way the person walked, the slight hitch in their step, the way they held their shoulders, it all felt sickeningly familiar. I called the police immediately. I reported the car stolen. I gave them all the information I had, including my suspicion that my brother might be involved. The officer on the phone was sympathetic but non-committal. He said they would investigate and contact me if they found anything. Then I called my parents. My mother answered on the third ring, her voice thick with sleep even though it was barely 8 in the evening. I told her my car had been stolen, that I thought Derek might have taken it, that I needed to speak to him right away. Her response made my blood run cold. "Derek is right here," she said. "He has been home all weekend. You need to stop blaming your brother for everything that goes wrong in your life." I could hear Derek in the background laughing at something on television. But I knew what I saw on that footage. I knew who had taken my car. The question was, how to prove it. 2 days later, the police called me. They had found the Mustang abandoned in an empty lot on the outskirts of Columbus. The car had been in an accident. It had crashed into a utility pole, deploying the airbags, crushing the front end. The damage was estimated at over $20,000. My beautiful car, my symbol of independence and hard work, was destroyed. But that was not the worst part. Not even close. The detective asked me to come to the station to discuss the case. I assumed they wanted more information, maybe to show me what they had found. Instead, I walked into an ambush. The detective sat me down in a small interrogation room with gray walls and a metal table. He looked at me with an expression I could not quite read. Suspicion, maybe. Pity. Something in between. He told me that before I reported the car stolen, my parents had already been to the station. Raymond and Patricia had filed a statement claiming that I, Ashford, had crashed the car myself while driving recklessly, then abandoned it, and filed a false theft report to collect insurance money. I could not breathe. I literally could not draw air into my lungs. The detective continued. My parents had told him I was mentally unstable, that I had a history of lying and manipulating, that I was jealous of my younger brother, and often made up stories to get him in trouble. Derek had also provided a statement corroborating everything our parents said. He claimed I had called him the night before, rambling about needing money and hating my life. None of it was true. Not a single word. But my family had walked into that police station and painted a picture of me as a criminal, a liar, a fraud. They had done it to protect Derek. They had done it without hesitation. I sat in that interrogation room and watched my life unravel. The detective said they were investigating me for insurance fraud, a felony that could carry up to 5 years in prison. He said I should get a lawyer. The next few weeks were the darkest of my life. I was formally charged with insurance fraud and filing a false police report. I had to post $10,000 in bail money that wiped out most of my savings. My employer found out about the charges and placed me on administrative leave pending the outcome. My friends started avoiding my calls. The few who answered said they believed me, but their voices were uncertain, hesitant. I called my mother one last time, hoping for something, anything, that would make sense of this nightmare. Her words will haunt me until the day I die. "Ashford, sweetheart," she said in that gentle voice she used when she was about to say something terrible. "Just plead guilty. Take the punishment. Derek just graduated. He is just starting his life. If he goes to prison, it will ruin everything he has worked for. But you already have a career. You already made something of yourself. You can survive a few years in prison and rebuild afterward. But Derek, it would destroy him." She wanted me to go to prison for a crime her other son committed. She wanted me to sacrifice my freedom, my career, my entire future, so that Derek would not have to face consequences for once in his life. I hung up the phone and sat in silence for a long time. 28 years of memories played through my mind. Every birthday where Derek's gifts overshadowed mine. Every achievement of mine that was dismissed or forgotten. Every failure of Derek's that was excused or celebrated. My entire life I had been trained to put myself last, to accept scraps while Derek feasted. Not anymore. Something inside me shifted, hardened, became steel. I was not going to sacrifice myself on the altar of my family's favoritism. I was going to fight. I found a lawyer named Marcus Thompson through a recommendation from a colleague at work. Marcus was in his late 40s with graying temples and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He specialized in criminal defense, and when I told him my story, those sharp eyes lit up with something that looked like righteous anger. "This case has holes," he said after reviewing the evidence. "Your parents' statement is inconsistent with the physical evidence. The timeline does not match. And if your brother really was home all weekend, there should be proof. Or proof that there is no proof." We started building my defense. Marcus filed motions to subpoena additional security footage from businesses near my apartment building. He requested phone records, credit card statements, anything that could establish a timeline. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A convenience store about half a block from my parking garage had a security camera that pointed toward the street. The police had not checked it because it seemed too far away to be relevant, but Marcus had a hunch. The footage showed a black Mustang driving past the store at 3:17 in the morning on the night of the theft. The driver's face was clearly visible through the windshield illuminated by the store's exterior lights. It was Derek. No hood, no disguise, just my brother's unmistakable face grinning as he drove my stolen car through the night. We found more evidence. Derek had bragged to his friends about borrowing his brother's car on multiple occasions. Marcus obtained text messages where Derek described the Mustang in detail, even mentioning the scratch he had made on the bumper months earlier. One message sent to a friend named Tyler just days before the theft was particularly damning. Derek had written that he was going to take the Mustang for a real joyride this time, and that his stupid brother would never figure out it was him. The case against me began to crumble, but Marcus was not satisfied with just proving my innocence. He wanted justice. He filed a motion to compel DNA analysis of evidence found inside the wrecked car. Hair samples, skin cells, fingerprints on the steering wheel and dashboard. The results came back conclusive. Every piece of biological evidence matched Derek, not me. The day of my trial arrived, but it did not go the way the prosecution expected. Marcus presented our evidence systematically, piece by piece, building an undeniable case for my innocence and Derek's guilt. The convenience store video was played for the courtroom. I watched the judge's face as Derek's grinning image filled the screen. I watched the prosecutor's confidence evaporate. Derek was called to testify. He walked to the stand with that old charm, that familiar smile, but it cracked under Marcus's questioning. The text messages were read aloud. The DNA evidence was presented. Derek's alibi, the claim that he had been home all weekend, was demolished by cell phone records showing his location in Columbus at the exact time of the theft. Finally, Derek broke. He admitted he had stolen the car. He admitted he had crashed it. And then, in a moment that seemed to shock even him, he admitted that our parents had told him to keep quiet and blame me. "They said Ashford could handle prison," Derek said, his voice shaking. "They said his life was already set, that he would bounce back. They said my future was more important." Raymond and Patricia were sitting in the gallery behind the prosecution's table. I turned to look at them as Derek's words echoed through the courtroom. My mother's face was white as paper. My father looked like he was about to be sick. The judge declared a recess. When we reconvened, I was acquitted of all charges. The case against me was dismissed with prejudice. But the legal system was not finished with my family. Derek was charged with vehicle theft, property damage, and filing a false statement. He pleaded guilty and received 2 years of probation, plus full financial restitution for the damage to my car. My parents faced more serious consequences. Raymond and Patricia were charged with filing false statements to law enforcement, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and perjury. They had lied under oath, conspired to frame their own son, and obstructed a criminal investigation. They were each sentenced to 18 months in state prison. I was in the courtroom when the sentence was announced. My mother cried. My father stared straight ahead with empty eyes. Derek sat in the gallery, pale and silent. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not joy, not even relief. Just a vast, hollow emptiness where my family used to be. The months after the trial were difficult in ways I had not anticipated. I had won. I had been vindicated. The people who tried to destroy me were facing consequences for their actions. But victory felt like ash in my mouth. I returned to work where my colleagues welcomed me back with apologetic smiles and awkward hugs. My boss gave me a raise and a formal letter acknowledging that the company had made a mistake in suspending me. I appreciated the gestures, but they could not undo the weeks of humiliation and fear. I started seeing a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Harrison, who specialized in family trauma. In her office, I unpacked 28 years of neglect, favoritism, and emotional abuse. I talked about the birthdays that were forgotten, the achievements that were dismissed, the constant message that I was less than not enough, always second place. Some nights I would lie awake in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how my parents could do what they did. How could a mother ask her son to go to prison for a crime he did not commit? How could a father look at his child and see someone disposable? Dr. Harrison helped me understand that some questions do not have satisfying answers. Some people are simply incapable of the love and fairness that healthy families take for granted. My parents had made their choice long before Derek stole my car. They had chosen him over me every day of my life. The trial just made it official. Recovery came slowly, in unexpected ways. A coworker named James invited me to join his hiking group, and I discovered a love for the outdoors I never knew I had. The mountains did not judge me. The trails did not compare me to anyone. I met Samantha at a coffee shop 6 months after the trial. She was reading a book about childhood trauma, and I made a comment about the author. We talked for 3 hours that first day. Samantha understood things I did not have to explain. Her own family had fractured years ago, and she had rebuilt her life from the pieces. She taught me that chosen family can be stronger than blood. Derek wrote to me from his probation officer's address about a year after everything happened. The letter was 4 pages long, filled with apologies and explanations and promises to do better. I read it once, then put it in a drawer. I was not ready to respond, and I was not sure I ever would be. Forgiveness, I learned, is not a single decision. It is a process, sometimes a lifelong one. I did not owe Derek my forgiveness on his timeline. I did not owe my parents anything at all. My mother was released from prison after 14 months for good behavior. She called me once from a number I did not recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was short. She said she was sorry, that she loved me, that she hoped we could talk someday. I deleted it without saving. My father served his full 18 months. I heard through a distant cousin that he moved to Florida after his release, that he and my mother were living separately now. I did not ask for more details. Their story was no longer part of mine. What I learned from all of this is something I wish I had understood years ago. Family is not just about blood. It is about respect, about showing up, about treating each other with basic human dignity. My parents failed that test in the most spectacular way possible, but their failure does not define me. I am more than the overlooked son. I am more than the scapegoat. I am someone who stood up for himself when it mattered most, someone who refused to be sacrificed for someone else's comfort. Today I drive a new car. Not a Mustang this time, just a practical sedan that gets me where I need to go. But sometimes on a sunny weekend I rent a convertible and drive down empty highways just for the joy of it. The wind in my hair, the open road ahead, the absolute freedom of being exactly who I want to be. I built a new life with people who actually care about me. Samantha and I moved in together last spring. James and the hiking group have become my brothers in every way that matters. My therapist says I have made remarkable progress, and for the first time in my life I believe her. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how things turned out, if I wish my family was different, if I miss what we could have been. The truth is, I do not miss them. I miss the idea of them. I miss the family I deserved but never had. But you cannot mourn something that never existed. You can only let it go and make room for something real. So, if you are watching this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you are the overlooked one in your family, the scapegoat, the one who is always expected to sacrifice and never allowed to shine, I want you to know something. You are not crazy. You are not selfish. You are not wrong for wanting to be treated with basic respect. And sometimes the hardest thing you will ever do is also the most necessary. Sometimes walking away from the people who raised you is not betrayal. It is survival. My parents tried to send me to prison to protect my brother's future. Now they have criminal records and I have a life I am proud of. I guess the universe has a sense of justice after all. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever had to stand up against your own family? How did you find the strength to put yourself first? Let me know your story below. If this video touched you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. And, if you have not already subscribed to the channel, so you do not miss more stories like this one. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this community. I hope you never have to face what I faced, but if you do, I hope you find the courage to fight for yourself. Take care of yourselves, and remember the family you choose is just as real as the family you were born into. Sometimes, even more so. Until next time.